Yo, yo. Oof. All right. So welcome to those who are checking this out on YouTube right there. I got a camera set up. Welcome to those who are just listening to the audio. For those of you guys who are not listening on YouTube that you can see the video, you can clearly see that I'm in an area that you've never seen me in before. That is because I am literally in Dr. Heenan's basement. I am literally using his massage table as a desk. He said that I could use his desk that you guys see right there. Nope, right there in the background. He said I could use it, but I told him, I was like, dude, like I don't have the IQ to be able to sit in that. There actually is a point to why I wanted to bring him up, because I'm wearing his Advanced Therapy Performance sweatshirt. And that's a great segue into telling you guys that you could save $100 on the onboarding of his remote programming. I think everyone that follows me knows that by now. But if you're new and you do want to find a training program that is not just cookie cutter, it's actually like 100%. I'm going to screen you, identify deficiencies, movement strength deficiencies, and then I'm going to individually program a specific training program that's designed for you, the athlete. Again, I'm biased. I've been training with the guy for a year now. And if you have been following me on Instagram or whatever, you've noticed that I've made a lot of great progress in the realm of baseball. From a velocity standpoint, from a recovery standpoint, all those kind of things, and much in large part to the personalized training program that Dr. Heenan and I have been doing. So in the show notes, you will find a way to get that $100 off. Show notes, what do I have for the show notes? therobbyrowshow.com/college. You're wondering why it's /college? Well, today's podcast, we're going to talk about, do I wish I would have went to college? So I was doing an IG Q&A the other day, that rhymed, and one of the questions was, do you wish you would have went to college? Or somewhere in the realm of like, do I wish I would have went to college, or do I regret not going to college? Something like that. And that's a question that I actually get asked quite often, and I haven't really dove into that type of answer, I guess. I've kind of just given, not necessarily a cookie cutter answer, but like just, I don't live my life with regrets. I never have, I never will. That stuff will eat you alive and keep you up at night. So at that same time though, I am a human being, and I do kind of, think about those types of things. So today I want to spend, however long it takes. I have no idea how long this will take, but I want to spend a good amount of time really diving into that, because I think there's a lot of people that follow me that could be potentially, having to go through that kind of same interesting, very, very fortunate dynamic where college or the pros, especially, if you're 18, even JUCO guys at 19, 20, or even if you're a junior in college, having that, opportunity to maybe get drafted your junior year or stay. So that's going to be today's podcast. That's going to be the topic. And I really want to basically just dive in. And again, for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, you'll see that I'm sitting on the floor. For those of you guys who are just listening to the audio, if I kind of, you hear some movement, that's just me moving myself into a better position / comfortable position. And I will also probably be doing this noise, which is me drinking water, because #hydration. All right, I'm spending too much time. Okay, before we dive into it, quick shout out. Another sponsor of today's episode, Pocket Radar. I did a tour of the place that, for those of you guys who follow me on IG, you saw that brief little highlights, and it was just so cool getting the opportunity to do that and just see all of the things that goes into creating a product like that. And I've talked a numerous amount of times on the podcast, on my Instagram channels, about the importance of velocity in today's game. And the biggest strides that I've made in velocity development have come when I've been super intentional with like velocity tracking. And what I mean by that is just having the ability to, see your numbers and track in a journal your numbers. So Pocket Radar, I mean, the amount of comparison videos that I have and have done on the Pocket Radar to the stocker gun that I spent a good amount of money on are very, 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 very impressive towards Pocket Radar. It's an affordable gun. I could save you, I think, up to $40 if you're interested. So go to the show notes, therobbyroadshow.com/college, and you'll see a discount option in there. Or you can just use discount, I think it's Robby10, all lowercase, ROBBY10 at checkout. Now, that discount code does not apply for like a bundle. So if you're trying to get a bundle and then you DM me or email me saying, hey, the code's not working, it's only for the individual product of like the gun. And I always will recommend, because I get a lot of questions on what I will recommend, and I always say the Smart Coach model. Obviously, it's going to be your most expensive model, but it's amazing as far as the app integration and the video integration that it allows. We live in a day and age where people are getting signed to professional contracts or committing to schools based off videos on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and you could have literally access to that if you have the Smart Coach model, the Pocket Radar model, because you can literally film yourself on your phone and Bluetooth it to the radar gun, and you'll see your velocity on the screen. I mean, it's really, really incredible. The just everything that goes in Pocket Radar is really, really impressive. So thank you for them for sponsoring not only the podcast, but for me, myself, as a person and as a baseball player. All right, so let me timestamp this at 7:35 for when we started this thing. I apologize for that long pre-roll, but got to do what you got to do. So do I wish I went to college? So essentially, do I regret the decision that I made of turning professional at the age of 18? So just to give you guys a full background information, just to really give you guys like the full painted picture so you guys don't have to do it. At the age of 17, I want to say, because we committed in November, so my birthday's in December, so I was still 17. I went on all my official visits. I had the ability to go on 4. I think if it's still the same way it was when I was in school or in high school, you get 5. And I went on 4 official visits because I didn't start my visits till later. And with basketball always in the way, it was kind of hard for me to schedule those visits. But I took 4. My first one was to ASU. Second one was to Kansas. Third one was to Long Beach, and then the fourth one was to Oregon. I ended up choosing Oregon for reasons we won't really dive into, but I guess to keep it super simple, like I really liked Eugene. I think me coming from a small town, those vibes kind of translated over into Oregon, into Eugene, Oregon. And, everyone that was involved there, it was going to be their second year of having a baseball program. And I just liked the idea of that. I liked the idea of me coming in as a freshman, having the ability to, have an impact on the season. And that kind of was, the deciding factor. There was conversations of having the ability to play basketball there as well. For those of you guys who don't know, I was legitimately I would classify myself, categorize myself as a basketball player in high school. Even like if you go to my hometown and you ask people, I think they would say that I'm a basketball player. So that was kind of, in the back pocket as far as what I wanted to do. Long story short, committed to Oregon, and around that time, obviously still getting attention from Major League Scouts, it was kind of in the back of my mind, something that I thought about in the sense of, okay, I probably won't go to school. Now, obviously, you have to still perform well during that spring season in high school, because again, this was in that November, December period where I was just playing basketball and I wasn't really throwing a lot, and I was kind of just going off of, you know, all the projections in the sense of how that last summer was, how that last fall was, and where scouts kind of had you. I did a lot of in-home visits that that winter, with scouts, you know, kind of coming into the house and, you know, sitting down with my family and I and discussing, like, being super transparent in the sense of, hey, you know, right now, as of right now, like, we have you slotted in this pick, like, would you sign for this? And they kind of just want to have an idea, right? Because as an organization, you don't want to pick somebody that has no interest in signing at 18. So for me personally, you know, having the background of a dad that played in the major leagues and, you know, having a really good understanding of who I was as an athlete or as a pitcher, you know, in regards to the maturity level and the seasoned, I guess, level, I just felt at that time in my development that there wasn't a whole lot of things that I needed to experience, learn, grow from that college would offer me. I wanted to be a baseball player. I wanted to identify that as that. I didn't want to think about school, even though, you know, I set myself up for success. I always got good grades. I, you know, checked all those boxes. I did whatever I needed to do to essentially write my own ticket. But I just wanted to be a baseball player. I wanted to wake up in the morning and the only thing on my mind was, how can I better myself as a baseball player, as a pitcher today? I didn't want to think about school or any of that. So again, at that time, you know, in that winter, I pretty much was like decided that was, if the opportunity presented itself and it was in the realm of what I wanted in the sense of rounds, money, then, you know, I was gonna go. Again, I was very fortunate to have a father that played in the big leagues and, you know, passed on a lot of knowledge to me at a young age to, like I said, set myself up for that opportunity. So to kind of break it down in the sense of what happened, for those of you guys who do not know what happened, I ended up getting drafted 88th overall in the 2010 draft, third round. That would have been a lot higher if I didn't poop the bed my last game of my high school career. But yeah, anyways, got drafted. Really was no doubt in my mind. I think before the draft, when things started getting really hectic and scouts wanted to know, you know, what will you sign for, what blah, blah, blah. I literally just said, pick me in the top 3 rounds and I'm signing and I want to play. My big thing was I wanted to get that first season underway. For those of you guys who don't know how that works, was you get drafted, for me it was June 8th. And then, you know, this was the old draft, so you could essentially hold out all summer and try to get as much money as possible, or you could like sign on the dot right away and then you can go play in rookie ball or the AZL or the Gulf Coast League. You can go play that season. And for me, I really wanted to like play. I wanted to get this thing underway because I just, you know, that was in my blood. I just wanted to play. I wanted to play professionally every single day. I wanted to pitch. I loved it, you know, and it was cool because we worked out a deal with the Diamondbacks, who drafted me, that if they signed my brother, who was a junior in college, then I would, you know, essentially make it as easy as possible on them, meaning I'd sign for slot and we'd get going. We came to terms, $400,000 to an 18-year-old kid with long hair and curly locks, and I was underway. I was ready to rock. I wanted to get going for multiple reasons. Mentioned before, I just wanted to be a pitcher. I wanted to pitch, and secondly, I wanted to show the organization that I was serious about this. And you know, when it came time for 2011 to come around, they could look at me and say, okay, well, he already had a season under his belt. Maybe we can send him to full season instead of, you know, the extended grind and then going to short season and so on and so forth. So I actually went as an 18-year-old and pitched in the Pioneer League, which is not a great league for pitchers, but everything that went down was actually fantastic. Like I try to talk about this to people that don't really get it, and it's hard for me to come up with like words and sentences to make sense. But ever since I was a kid, I was just so used to this lifestyle of living out of a suitcase and traveling and being in different places, and that instability, that it pretty much brings about. And for some reason, I just fell in love with that lifestyle. So for me, it wasn't about like, hey, would you be ready to kind of do this? It was like, dude, like, you don't even have to ask me if I'm ready. Like, I want to go. I want to do that, because that's just I still love that lifestyle. Like, I still love being on the go and living out of a suitcase and so on and so forth. So for those of you guys who are still listening, I actually apologize, because I just looked, it's 15 minutes and a half, and I really haven't even given an answer yet. So I want to try to break this down, and then we'll talk later about the details. But I went and pitched when I was 18, and I would say that season was actually really good. I would say that season was successful because I learned a lot. I pitched. I had a lot of success. I had a lot of failure. I had fun. I loved the process. I loved the bus rides. I literally like knew after that first season that this was for me. Like, I made the right decision based on my overall happiness and the overall amount of joy that I had from that first season. So it wasn't something that, right off the bat I was failing. And I was like, gosh, did I make the right decision? This wasn't it for me, blah, blah, blah. Because, like I said, I loved it. I loved every bit of it. Yeah, I had outings where I didn't get out of the first inning and I was super frustrated. But then I had outings where I went 5 scoreless or, 4 hitless innings. Like, I knew pretty much off the jump. Well, I wouldn't say off the jump. My debut wasn't great. But I knew right from the beginning that I belonged. And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, in the sense of signing at 18 and starting to compete at a professional level, that, it's that confidence level of, okay, well, now I got to test the waters in the sense of, do I belong, or did I, whatever. I think for me, that first season was really, really good. I think I learned a lot. Like I said, I performed well in my sense. I don't know if numbers will show that. I think I ended up with somewhere around a 5 ERA. But, those were loaded numbers because we had a pitch count. We had an innings limit per outing. They would only let me go 5 innings because I was coming off a high school season. So they would only let me go 5 innings. And like I said, I didn't get out of the first inning, I think, on 2 occasions, which it'll balloon your ERA. So I warn you on that, guys listening. Make sure you get out of the first inning. And then, I went to Instructs, did that whole thing, was still loving it, had my first off season, went great. Again, this was something where my first off season, they gave me a lifting program, and I never had lifted in high school. I was too busy with basketball and baseball, like a lot, and I never lifted weights. So it was kind of like something new to me, and that was a whole new thing. But, to get into that 2011 when I was 19 and then so on and so forth, I struggled big time. I've been very vocal about that. 2011 was probably the worst in the sense of failing, and I didn't know what I was doing. So like I said, when it comes to that whole identification process of do I belong, which stems a lot of self-confidence, I was struggling with that because every outing I was going out, I would have moments of being good, but those moments were trumped by the amount of moments that I had where I wasn't good. I was dog poo-poo, and my ERA, I think, was showcased that. It wasn't really ballooned. It was just that clear representation of how bad I was. It was like an 8.5. I was a starter, and it was bad. And it wasn't one of those like yip moments where I was struggling with like the strike zone. That was one thing that made me really good that year. Well, I wasn't really good, but one of those bright spots was like I didn't walk anyone. I had really good command with all my pitches. It was just a constant battle of like finding out, okay, why am I getting shellacked? Why is my neck hurt after every outing? So on and so forth. And for me, honestly, man, it was one of those things where I would give in too much. I knew that I wanted to identify as a guy that was a strike thrower. So I was living hard of the plate, and then every time I went out and pitched, everyone knew that. Everyone knew that I was going to live hard of the plate, and that was, kind of backfired on me because again, we won't dive into it. This podcast is going to be on do I regret it or not, but and then, got traded, had success, and then failed, and blah, blah, blah. So now that I'm 28, I just turned 28, but I'm still 18, so it doesn't matter. I can look back at that now in a mature sense and be like, okay, I still made the right decision because, as I mentioned earlier, the amount of joy and happiness that I still have being a baseball player and being a pitcher is so high. Like I almost classify it like a right or wrong decision based on overall like joy, and I know that there should be a part of that where it's more of like results based. Do I think if I would have went to college, I would have learned the same things that I learned early on in my career? Yeah, maybe. Who's to tell? I think we get into this slippery slope sometimes where we try to predict like what if, right? And that kind of goes back to that thought I had on the regrets. Like that stuff will kind of keep you up at night. I try not to live with that, but again, being a human being, like I'm still going to think about it. The one thing that I will say, as far as like if it makes it easier or not on me to not regret it as much, is a big staple that was my kind of the deciding factor on if I was going to go to Oregon or not, in the sense, like if I was going to sign or not, was I loved the pitching coach there was Andrew Checketts at the time. And he ended up leaving and taking a head coaching job at UC Santa Barbara. So that was like, man, I was going to go. He was a big part of the reason why I wanted to go to Oregon. And if he would have left, that kind of would have, affected me, I think, a little bit. But I think there's a lot of people or a lot of athletes that I think need the experience that comes along with, being on your own and having to essentially fend for yourself, right? A lot of guys, especially myself, like in high school, you get your meals cooked by your parents, you get your laundry done, like all these little things that we don't necessarily think about as athletes, they all weigh into it, and like I said, that was something that I was already kind of wanting to do. I wanted to be on my own. I am a very independent person, but in the sense of going to college and experiencing that, it was for some people that they might need to do that. Another thing that that kind of went into the decision of signing at 18 was the fact that I would not necessarily have to restart and start from scratch from the MLB like scouting department. But it was always, I was coming at 18. I was on a high note in the sense of, being projectable, being considered as a top, 1-2 round pick. And then if I would have went to college, one bad season, 2 bad seasons, next thing you know, you're not looked at as maybe even a top 10 rounder. But again, flip side of that coin was you can go to college and you can perform really well and you could get picked even higher, right? Like look at a Garrett Cole situation where in high school he was a first rounder. I don't know what pick exactly, but he went to college 3 years later. He's number 1 overall. Like that could have happened, right? I think the one thing that sticks out to me even today, looking back at the whole dynamic, was the fact that when I turned pro, I immediately sought out a ton of information, right? I think I said this on maybe last time I did a podcast, maybe 2 times ago, where my personality, like I wanted to seek out a ton of information because everyone involved in, professional baseball, the coaches and so on and so forth, they were pros. And I was so focused on like wanting to learn and wanting to incorporate more and wanting to seek out more knowledge. And I don't necessarily know if I would have done that in college. I think when you do go to college, and again, I could be wrong, but I think the setting there is like, okay, what do you got? Let's see what you've got and go out and perform. And then, we'll kind of go with that. And there's not too much instruction based. I think in professional, especially at 18, everyone wants to get their hands on you. Everyone wants to optimize you. And that was kind of one of the biggest downfalls for me because, again, that's how I am. That's my personality. Like I want to learn. And if I would have just kind of stuck with that same approach that I had my first year when I was 18, in the sense of just going out there and just being like a kid and competing and having fun and not diving down the rabbit hole of, mechanics and looking at video every day and just kind of just like sinking in that quicksand, right? I don't know if that would have necessarily happened in college. Now, again, I can't predict things. I can't sit here and say what if, but that was one of the drastic things that I'll tell guys is for me. It was dang, it was tough, right? Going to pro and having all of that. Now, obviously, the benefits of going pro at 18 is, the financial stability. I had an opportunity to, get a decent signing bonus and live off that and still living off that, honestly. I think that whole thing was cool. And it's funny because I'll still tell guys, that was never really a huge piece to the signing puzzle for me. I was never like, even when the draft was like 2 days away, I was never really focused on the amount of money that I was going to get. Now, that draft, the Diamondbacks had the 7th overall pick, and he ended up not signing. He didn't pass his physical, so they had a ton of money to give, right? And I could have got a lot more. Now, again, I don't regret it. It's just another one of those the pieces to the puzzle. But like I said, I wasn't like super focused on that. I wanted to be a baseball player. I wanted to get like to the big leagues, man. Like that was the goal. Yeah, the goal of getting drafted high and having the opportunity to play at a young age professionally and be like the youngest guy in each league. Like that's great. But I even said on a video interview, like a couple days after the draft, the local like paper came to me and said, realistically, like, what do you think your goals are as far as, how long will it take you to get to the big leagues? And even at that age, I was 18, I think 3 years, when I'm 21, I'll make my big league debut, just because like that was the goal. My dad and mom, like everyone involved when I was younger, did a great job of making sure that I knew that, making sure that I wasn't seeking out a ton of money from the draft, and knowing that the money was all like in the big leagues. And that was the goal for me. It was like, get to the big leagues, sign now, play that first season, and then just, get that thing kickstarted. I still think that was the right decision for me. Again, a thing that stuck out to scouts when they went and watched me pitch was that I had a really good idea of the game plan. I had a really good idea of the game. I have a high baseball IQ. I did when I was 18. Again, my dad played in the big leagues. Like, we didn't have bedtime stories that were fairy tales and whatnot. Like, we talked about the game of baseball. We talked about all of those like little intricacies of the game and just like high IQ things. And when I was 18, I just felt like I had a really good just a really good grasp on those little things, and that for me was going to carry over to professional baseball. Those weren't the things that I had to learn along the way. Those were things that I already knew going into it. But shoot, man, who knows? But to kind of wrap this all up, because I know I do this a lot when I podcast, and I apologize to you guys, my listeners, for having to put up with this. And I kind of just go off beaten paths and whatnot, and I can't just, whatever. To really sum it up is I really think that as a individual, you have to really identify yourself. You have to really know strengths and weaknesses, explore each option. If you are someone that's fortunate enough to have that opportunity, explore each option in the sense of how you think, given your personality, how you would do, on the field, off the field. Will you get run down? Will you get drained? With me, I never really thought too much into the whole college experience. Even when I took my official visits, people thought I was going to be a bad teammate because I didn't want to go out and party and drink. I remember, I'll never forget my first visit, which was to ASU. They wanted to like take me out, have a good time or whatever. I don't know. And I was so focused on like, hey, I got to get back to the hotel because like Pops and I got to throw today. And I think the report on me was that I was going to be like a loser, but that was just a clear representation of who I was as an athlete, as a player, as a person. Like, I was just so focused on the task at hand. I was so focused on the goal. And again, this is fun for me. Like, throwing a baseball is fun for me. Yeah, going to college and like having to experience that and having to or even just developing those friendships, right? Like I talked to a lot of people that did go to college and did experience all of that. Like you develop a lot of lifelong, friendships, brotherhoods, families. Like I get all that. And I know I missed out on that, and the camaraderie and the, the passion that is in college sports. And I missed out on all of that. But that's not to say that I regret the decision. That's just kind of something that comes along with it. To answer the question in the sense of, do I think that I would have been a better baseball player? Like, again, who knows, right? As reasons mentioned before, like there's maybe things that I think would have helped, but who really knows? But if you ever want to talk to me about this dynamic, like if you're someone going through it, hit me up, contact robbyrowe@gmail.com. I appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Thanks for letting me sit here for 30 minutes and talk about my experience and my journey and what I'm going through now and what I went through and all of that stuff. So if you know someone that could potentially be going through this, share this podcast with them. That'd be great. Yeah, that's all I got. Show notes, therobbyroweshow.com/college. You can find the sponsorship information, and maybe I'll type out a little something more that I could potentially think about while I'm editing this podcast, because that happens a lot too. Maybe I should start writing some things down before I really go into it. And I apologize to those who were watching on YouTube and then the video got cut off. I just realized that the camera is off right now. So battery must have died. I don't remember. I blacked out. All right. As always, love you guys. God bless. Enjoy the rest of your day. And be sure to be locked in on not only the podcast, but the website, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all of that stuff, trying to release as much new content and instructional content as possible. If you're someone that wants to work with me remotely, put that in the show notes as well. That's all I got. All right. Enjoy the rest of your guys' day.